Today, it's time to start your career as a professional wrestler. We are going to grapple till the sun goes down with today's builds. Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether it's grappling a dragon or booking your first pro wrestling match, I'm here to help you with everything. So, last week I talked about underused racials in D&D 5e and stumbled upon the Loxodon's trunk ability. This inspired me to go full grapple for today, and like usual I've made two very different builds that utilize the grappling mechanic. I'll take them both to level 8 and talk about what they do and how they do it and what they gain at each level. Spoiler alert, they grapple a lot. Few things before we start. While I am constantly generating ideas to keep you all inspired, it would be of great benefit to me to know what you are looking for in a D&D game. What aspect do you think I could help you with? What types of videos are you missing in my wonderful array of videos? I can pretty much cover any topic that's in an official D&D book, since that is what most people stick to. That is also what I'm sticking to. Also, a quick shout out to the Facebook group I became part of a while ago, the Dungeons and Dragons Fundamentals. They try to help new players get started, and they have a pretty dedicated team in doing so. There are also some really good map makers in there, so go on and have a look. The link will be down below in the comments. Right, so usually before my builds, I always talk about any common ground the builds have. There is none this week, so instead I'm going to use this time to talk a bit about the grapple mechanic, because many of you probably will never have used this mechanic, since it's not like a standard thing to do during a fight. So here we go, the grapple mechanic. When can you grapple? You can grapple as a part of the attack action. It replaces your attack with a special grapple check. If you can attack multiple times in one action, for example you're a 5th level fighter, you can also make multiple grapple attempts in one action. Nice side note, a grapple check is not an attack, so if something mentions it stops attack or you cannot attack a creature or whatever, you're not making any attack rolls, you're grappling. Even though you're taking the attack action, you're not attacking anything. When you attempt to grapple someone, you check your athletics versus their athletics or acrobatics. The defender gets to choose which one he or she is using. This is a check, so ties are in favor of the defender, namely the person who is getting grappled, so you need a higher roll. Once a grappled creature is stuck, they can try to escape by spending their action to try and attempt another check. Again, they will be checking their athletics or acrobatics versus your athletics. This time, however, you as the grappler are the defender, so that means a tie is in your favor. So while it's slightly harder to get grappling, defending your grapple then again is a bit easier. While grappled, and this is of course where we get to the meat and bones, why are we doing this? A creature's speed is reduced to 0 and they cannot receive any bonus speed whatsoever. Also, the grappler can drag the creature along during his movement, but only at half their usual movement speed. Dragging along an unwilling dwarf, whatever, takes some energy. Forced movement, like for example from Thunderwave, does break the grapple. The grappler getting incapacitated obviously also breaks the grapple, just like trying to grapple somebody who is incapacitated will always work. While you are grappling someone or something and they cannot get away anymore, we move on to the most important part of grappling, and that is the special melee attack you can do to shove someone. You could shove someone away from you, but that's not what we're interested in. You can shove people to the ground, and that is the interesting bit. You make a special melee attack. Again, you can test athletics versus their athletics or acrobatics to see if this works. And the reason you want to shove them to the floor is twofold. One, they can't get away. They have 0 movement speed, and you need half your movement speed to get up. They're not going anywhere. 2, if you're attacking someone that is prone and you are within 5 feet of the target, you get advantage. Not just the melee attackers, also the range attackers don't have any disadvantage anymore because they would be too close. You get the idea. It disappears. So your paladins, your rogues, even your fighters and your barbarians are going to be really, really, really happy with all the prone targets you can provide. For spellcasters, just tell them not to use any spells that require an attack roll, because when you're prone you gain advantage against range attacks, normally speaking. So just use stuff that requires a saving throw. That's all good. Important stuff to remember is that you cannot grapple anything that is more than one size larger than you. This means that halflings and gnomes make for terrible grapplers, since they could only grapple tiny, medium and small creatures. Then again, it could be really fun watching a halfling wrestle a Goliath. It's your pick, go right ahead. Equally important, it is perfectly possible to either grapple one creature and then attack him with your other hand, and if they're prone you will have advantage with your own weapon, or you could use both of your hands and grapple two creatures to give your allies easy pickings on all of the enemies. The enemies, by the way, while they are prone, have disadvantage on their attack rolls, so you're not just providing better offensive options to your party, you're also taking care of some defense when it comes to attack rolls. So let's have a look at the builds then. The first build is a very classic build. It is going to be the Barbarian Grappler. When we look at race, there should be no surprise there. It is going to be the race that inspired all of these grappling nonsense builds, the Loxodon. Loxodons come from the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, so sorry Adventure Leaguers, you cannot use these races in your campaign. Whoopsie, don't worry, the second build has a race that you can use. Why the Loxodon? Well, I like them, they're elephant people, they give +2 constitution, +1 wisdom, they have some quirky racials like advantage on smell checks, and they have the powerful build. They can also have an alternative armor class of 12 plus constitution, which could be nice for some classes, but for today it's not going to be our thing. But we are here mainly, as I explained last time, for the trunk. Being an elephant-like people, obviously they have a trunk. The trunk cannot be used to wield weapons or for the somatic component of spells, but it can be used to perform an unarmed attack with. It can be used to open doors, whatever, like simple tasks. But more importantly, you can grapple someone with it. This effectively gives our elephant guy 3 arms for the sake of grappling. That is more grappling than any other race you're going to see. Time to look at our ability scores then. We always use point buy, and that will make your ability scores kind of look like the following. 15 in strength, and then I put 14 in dex, 14 in constitution, which will become a 16 thanks to racial bonuses. 18 intelligence, 11 in wisdom, which will become a 12, and 9 in charisma. As long as you don't mess with the strength and constitution stats, you can redesign this Loxodon however you like. Usually barbarians end up wearing medium armor later on, so that's why the higher dex is in the build. It helps you out there. And I took the higher wisdom to capitalize on the +1 wisdom we're gaining to help my wisdom related skills. But if you want to do something completely different, go right ahead, just keep strength and constitution in place. They're going to be really important for you. And yes, not having 16 strength from level 1 is going to hurt you a bit as a grappler, but we compensate by grabbing proficiency in the athletics skill. You should know by now that athletics is going to be very important. So having a +4 on your athletics and thus on your grapple checks is going to be really nice. Also, being a barbarian, you get rage at level 1, and we all know that rage bumps your damage a bit, but you know what else it does? It gives you advantage on strength checks. You know what's a good example of a strength check? Grappling. So the 14 strength, well the 15 actually, the +2 bonus will be fine once we start rolling +4 checks with advantage for pretty much an entire fight. Level 2 is nothing too crazy for the barbarians. Reckless attacks don't really help us that much. Yes, you gain advantage on your target, but you also gain advantage by grappling them and shoving to the floor, so meh. Danger sense is nice though, giving you advantage on dexterity saves against things you can see like traps or spells or whatever. It's a nice defensive bonus. Level 3, time to choose our path, our barbarian subclass. You will be taking quite a bit of damage once you're tumbling around with your grapple targets. So yes, good old bear totem could work here, giving you damage reduction, blah blah blah. But we all know that bear totems, once you've played the game for a longer time, are a bit boring and unimaginative. I got nothing against it. It's a really good subclass when you're learning the game, but once you know the game, I think it's more fun to look for active subclasses that allow you to do stuff. So we are going to do something completely different. Our Loxobarb is going to become a Battle Rager. Oi! Hold on, Sam. Isn't that a dwarf-only subclass? Yes and no. The restriction clearly states that it is made with the Forgotten Realms in mind and that your dungeon master is free to lift the restriction. I am my own dungeon master here in the attic dungeon, so out the window it goes. But without looking at it from an easy power buildy cheesy aspect or whatever, I'm against racial restrictions on subclasses. There's only two in the entire game. It's the Battle Rager Barbarian for dwarves and the Blade Singer Wizard for elves. Obviously, dwarves versus elves. The ancient battle continues, blah blah blah. Both are really cool subclasses. Blade Singer makes your wizard a powerful hybrid class, in my opinion, and Battle Ranger is a strong and flavorful subclass for barbarians. If your dungeon master is a bit hesitant, you can always explain to them that player characters are more often than not exceptions to the general rule. Why is the drow player in every party not evil like the rest of their race? Why is our tiefling not rejected in every inn on account of being half demon? Why is our dwarf not the most asocial bugger around? So why not this? If you want to keep the dwarven or elven feel to it, make your story so that you were trained by this specific race and they took you in as one of their own and they showed you this special path. Even if you kind of want to keep the restriction in place, you should be able to obtain this subclass on other races than just dwarves or elves. Okay, so why do we want a Battle Rager? There's two reasons at level 3. First off, you gain access to a set of spiked armor, which is a medium type of armor, 14 plus a possible dexterity bonus of 2. Already you see why I put those extra points into dexterity. As you can imagine, it's a full set of spiked armor, which allows you to do the following. 1, as long as you're raging, you can make an extra attack by spending a bonus action to deal damage with your armor. It acts as a weapon actually as well. It's protection and offense at the same time. You don't need to have a free hand for this, to be honest. You could easily imagine it as you punching someone with a spiked glove. It always deals 1d4 plus strength mod damage, by the way. But it might as well just be you headbutting or kicking someone, which means that if you're holding people, even if you're holding 3 people, you could still use your bonus action to just spike knee someone in the groin to deal damage even though you don't have any free hands. Or you could, if you're grappling onto 2 people, I mean you've already shoved them down to the floor, so you kind of have completed your grapple cycle for now. You can use your 1 free hand, which is holding a sword or an axe, and attack, and then attack again with the bonus action. So it ups your damage even though you don't have that many free hands to hold weapons in, which is really good actually. The second feature is also a damage dealing one. It's called a Battle Rager. What did you expect? Every time you grapple someone, you deal 3 piercing damage. It's pure and simple. It's not made for those top tiers of play with ginormous half gods that you're fighting because they don't care about 3 piercing damage. But it's pretty good at lower tiers. I'd say anything below level 10 is good enough for this feature to deal some pretty nice damage. You can grapple 3 things at the same time, so that's 9 free damage. And don't forget, if something breaks loose and you grapple it again, it gets the 3 damage again. So that is why we want the Battle Rager for our Loxodon Barbarian Grappler. At level 4, we will pick up a feat, and oddly enough, it's not going to be the Grappler feat. I don't like the Grappler feat. It is super niche, and oddly enough, it doesn't make you any better at grappling whatsoever. Bad name for a Honestly, bad feat, so try to avoid it. Instead, we will take the Tavern Brawler feat. Tavern Brawler gives us 4 pretty good perks. Let's go over them. First off, you get to bump your strength or your constitution by 1 up to the usual maximum of 20. So we will put that 1 into strength, which will make it into a 16, which will again bump our grappling prowess and everything else since we're a strength class, so it's pretty good for us. Secondly, you become proficient with improvised weaponry. You can now pick up anything in the world and punch people with it or throw it at them, and you will deal 1d4 plus your strength modifier in damage in that case. Now this sounds like fun. You can pick up random stuff like a pie or a duck and punch somebody with it and claim it does 1d4 plus whatever damage. But more interesting is the fact that you could wield a shield now. Barbarians are perfectly fine with wielding shields. Grapple someone and then smash them with the shield, or grab them with the trunk and smash them with your hand on your shield, and you would still have 2 attacks, like 2 hands that you can attack with, and still get a shield plus 2 armor class buff. So this could really add to the survivability of your Loxodon Grappler. Next up, fun bit, your fists are now daggers. What I mean with that is that your fists, instead of dealing the regular unarmed attack damage, which is just basically your strain bonus, now deal 1d4 plus your strain bonus in damage. So that is a nice little buff. Since we need a free hand to grapple, now you can also use that hand as an actual pretty decent non-magical weapon. That is nice. Use it often, use it plenty. And last but not least, if you attack someone with an improvised weapon or your fists, you can now, if you hit, you can use a bonus action to grapple them afterwards. So no longer do you have to spend an action without attacking to grapple one. You can punch someone and then try to grapple them. Mind you, the attack has to hit. So if you have a really high armor class type of enemy, you might be better off still going for the standard grapple check. But if you're like, this enemy is pretty easy to hit, or I'm using reckless attack, look, it does come into play at some point. I'm using reckless attack to gain advantage and will have an easier time hitting someone. You could hit him first and then go for the grapple check. If you're raging, you will still have advantage on that as well. Barbarian grapplers really like having advantage everywhere. So that is our level 4, the Tavern Brawler feat. So level 5, you gain extra attack. You know what you can do now? Grapple 2 people in 1 turn. Huzzah! Even better, you can start your turn by raging with your bonus action, run in and grapple 2 of the buggers with your 2 attacks. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Level 6 is a minor level for us. Battle Rager really suits the flavor of this grappling build superbly, especially at the lower levels. I'm not going to claim that that Battle Rager is a high tier subclass for higher levels. It's not. But the level 6 is a bit off for us, because what it does is when you use reckless attacks to gain advantage, you gain some temporary hit points equal to your constitution mod. It can be handy on occasion if you're not grappling and actually attacking things. But it's not super useful for the grappling build, since we don't use reckless attack that often. We don't use it at all when performing grappling checks, so meh. By the way, this is going to come in handy when you're not grappling, as I said. Do always carry a big ass weapon with you for when a fight doesn't allow you to grapple. You're fighting a really large enemy, maybe it even flies and you need some ranged weaponry. It's not because you're punchy McPunch pants that you don't need weapons. Carry some hand axes, carry a great axe, a great sword, whatever, for those fights where your abilities are less useful. Level 7 gives you advantage on initiative rolls. That is actually pretty nice, because you can get in there and grapple first more often. Also, even if you would be surprised at the start of combat, if you get ambushed, for example, you can escape the surprise by popping rage and start grappling people. This is actually, although it's very situational because you don't get surprised that often, of course, depends on the DM, I guess. You could possibly nullify the surprise action other people get by having a high initiative with your advantage, popping rage and grappling 2 guys and not giving him any chance to do something whatsoever while your allies are still surprised and figuring out what's happening. And then we come to level 8. It is very simple for us. We increase our strength score by 2. You are now sitting comfortably atop 18 strength, and +7 on your athletics checks that you perform, usually with advantage. So yes, there we are, level 8 Loxodon Barbarian Grappler, capable of holding down 3 targets at the same time. Mind you, you cannot grapple 3 targets in 1 turn. You don't get another extra attack feature, so, well, it's technically possible. For example, if a friendly wizard would cast haste on you, you have an extra action which you could use to grapple with your trunk. And then you can and should grapple 3 things in the same turn. Also, it gives you double movement speed haste, so it kind of nullifies the fact that you only have half speed while grappling someone. So really, team up with a wizard, ask him for haste, and then just run around grappling 3 things, pinning him down, and not giving a damn about the downsides of grapple. That should be a lot of fun. So, as you can see, this grappler is pretty great at what he does. He can grapple anything that is large or smaller, possibly 3 things at a time. A fun, vivid example, you could grapple 3 ogres at the same time, and your DM would have to allow you technically, because you're just following the rules without even bending him. This is not like a rule lawyery bendy build. This is just straight up what grapple does. So this build is really good at that. It does lack a bit of flexibility. If you're not able to grapple, just punch things to death in a bloody rage. You're also still very good at that. You're still a full-grown barbarian elephant, so go for it. Enjoy grappling, enjoy beating things to death, and let's move on to our next build. In the intro, I briefly mentioned grappling dragons, and oh my god, Sam, dragons are huge. I can't grapple those with my medium-sized creatures. Don't worry. You're going to need an expert here. To grapple with huge creatures like dragons, we're going to need a specialist. Someone who knows the ins and outs of combat and who has no problems becoming a professional wrestler. We need a lore bard. I'm pretty sure I can imagine your face right now. How are those singing pansies going to become the greatest luchador in the history of dragonkind? Well, right this way, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go over it step by step. First, our race. Again, being a grappler, we'll need some decent strength and constitution. Also, lore bards are made out of paper and we won't always have time to cast defensive spells. Could it be that another one of my underused racials is going to come into play? Introducing in the blue corner, the Mountain Dwarf! +2 strength and +2 constitution. And they have medium armor proficiency. Well, light and medium armor proficiency, but your bard already gains light armor. So medium armor proficiency. What they don't have is charisma. And we are a bard, and some dexterity always helps for maintaining that armor class. This build is going to be something special. It's called a MAD build, and MAD stands for Multi-Ability Score Dependent. They're hard because they obviously rely on a lot of different ability scores to be effective, and you have to be really careful to balance these things. Luckily, the fact that the Mountain Dwarf, as one of only, I think, 2 races, maybe 3 now, gets 2+2 bonuses on some ability scores helps us immensely in this case. Once again, we are using point buy, and with these points, we buy ourselves a 14 in strength, which will become a 16, 14 in dexterity to max our medium armor class, a 13 in constitution. This is going to become a 15. I'll put a 9 in intelligence because I had some leftover points somewhere, an 8 in wisdom, and a 14 in charisma because, you know, spellcasting and all that stuff. So yes, we now have a strength-based lore bard. Feel free to actually use a longsword instead of a bloody rapier this time around, or a nice dwarven hammer as your weapon. You gain proficiency with those as well, just because you're a dwarf rather. You won't be able to start with medium armor initially, but it should not be too hard to pick some up during your first travels. Rob a corpse, use a quest reward to buy some, break into a store and steal some, whatever floats your boat. Again, we will be picking up proficiency in athletics. This one does start out with a nice +5 to the roll, so whoop-de-doo for that one. Spell-wise, for now, you are very free to choose what you want. 14 charisma is good enough to cast your spells reliably, as I've stated many times before. You can also just whack people with your sword or hammer, or cast spells that don't care about your charisma stat, like sleep. The only real downside for a lower charisma bard is that you only have 2 bardic inspirations to hand out at this point. Oh well, who needs inspiration when we want to wrestle dragons? Level 2 brings us more spells. Go ahead and pick what you want. I'll start heavily suggesting spells starting next level. Level 2 also brings us expertise, so we can double our proficiency bonus for 2 skills. Guess which skill is at the top of our list for getting buffed? Athletics, yay! It is now a very nice +7, which is the same as our level 8 barbarian had. I mean, we're going places with this guy. Should be alright to grapple some buggers with. You could also get, no, you also get, you don't choose to get it, you just get it. Jack of all trades, which buffs all your non-proficient skills, and that takes care of those skills that were negative due to our low intelligence or wisdom. Those negative modifiers are gone now. Great stuff, really. So level 3, this is when it becomes important. First off, we become a lore bard, master of stories and books and knowledge and wrestling. You get more skill proficiencies, flavor out your bard any way you want. This is the nice bit about being a bard for this build. You get so much skills and spells that will still allow you to be a Swiss Army knife to help out your team, but here and there we make some choices that put us up there as a top dragon wrangler. You also gain cutting words. I've talked about this ability before. Usually it is used to make an opponent fail his or her attack roll. They roll your attack, they roll their attack obviously, you roll a bardic inspiration die and you deduct a number from the attack roll, potentially making it miss. For now we're talking about the 6s, by the way. But it can also be used to reduce the result of an ability check. You mean like an opponent's anti-grapple check, their athletics or acrobatics checks? Goody! You roll, they roll, you don't like their roll, you make them subtract a d6 from it. Life is good and you will still grapple them. Really handy to have around, so you might not be handing them out as often as you would with a normal lore bard. Always keep one in your pockets for emergency grapple checks. Time for a spell suggestion. Grab Enhance ability at this level. It is a concentration spell, so be a bit careful with that. But if you take the bull strength part of it, you will now make those awesome +7 grapple checks with advantage. Yes, hell to the yes! There are few creatures that are going to escape your mighty wrestling skills now. Level 4, it is time for a feat again, and it is obviously not the same feat as for our barbarian. You could pick up Tavern Brawler for this one, but I prefer something different. We are going to take Resilient Constitution. It allows us to even out Constitution to an even 16, gaining more hit points, better concentration saves. Yay, that's everything we want. And proficiency in concentration saves. Well, Constitution saves in general, so this means also concentration saves. And this is going to be really important because we will rely on concentration spells heavily to improve our grappling skills, as we are already doing with the enhanced ability spells. Level 5. We gain access to level 3 spells. Huzzah! Also, your 2 bardic inspiration dice now reset on short rests, which is even better. That means you can do more successful grapples or deflected attacks with a short rest now and then. Spell-wise, I could suggest Catnap depending on your party. You can complete a short rest in 10 minutes with it, resetting your bardic inspiration dice and whatever else a short rest might reset for you or other party members. If you have a fighter or a warlock with you, they are really going to love this spell. It's really good for them, seeing as both classes, especially Battlemaster fighters, have a lot of stuff that reset on short rest. For a warlock, that's all of the spell slots. For a Battlemaster fighter, that's all of his fighter feats, really. He completely thrives on short rests. Leomund's tiny hut is also nice, providing some shelter during long rests. Again, take what you like. My level 3 suggestions are for level 6. Yes, level 6 means your lore bard gets magical secrets. He or she can pick 2 spells from any class list out there, and boy do I have some good ones for you here. Yeah, first up, we take the level 2 spell Enlarge/Reduce. With this spell, you can grow yourself to the next size, which is large for us, because dwarves are a medium creature. You also gain advantage on strength checks, means you don't have to use enhanced ability that often. You could probably swap it out for something else. You deal more damage, you add a d4 to all of your attacks, and obviously, now you can grapple with dragons, because they are huge and you're large. They are only one size above you now. You could also, you could also try to reduce the dragon in size and shrink it down. But let's be honest, that requires a saving throw and your charisma is still a bit on the offside. A lot of dragons have legendary resistance. They'll just resist the reduce effect. And it's only half as epic as having a large dwarf wrestle a huge dragon. Just imagine the flavor and savor it. Now, if the dragon starts flying, this could become a bit more problematic. That's why one of my other 2 suggestions for Magical Secret is that you pick up Fly as your second spell. I know, again, it's a concentration spell. Damn it, Sam, what's up with all concentration spells? Usually you're so careful about these. But you can spend 1 turn flying towards the dragon, and then on the next turn you hover above him, break concentration on fly, you drop down obviously, and then you cast Enlarge on yourself and just weigh down the dragon. You ride the dragon and then you grapple it. It's a lot of stuff to do. It's not the most efficient action economy out there, but it is a way that you can reach flying dragons or flying creatures in general with your large grappler. It also helps if somebody else in the party knows fly and casts it on you. It speeds up the process a lot more. You could also use your second spell choice to increase your chances of actually grappling stuff. You don't gain extra attack. You're a lore bard. No extra attack feature anywhere in sight, except if you would decide to multi-class later on, which is really doable, no problem there. Your stats are so all over the place that you can multi-class into pretty much everything. But you could also pick up haste. If you haste yourself, you gain +2 armor class, double movement, as we talked about it last time, and you gain an extra action, which you can use to grapple again. You're still going to have those really big athletics numbers, so go for it. But you won't have advantage because you cannot enlarge and haste yourself. Again, concentration spells. So there's a lot of good concentration spells here that can help you out to enhance your grappling prowess. Pick whatever you feel is right for you. And if there are other spellcasters in the party, which is very likely, maybe gently ask them if they would be up for picking one of the other spells to wombo combo your wrestling dwarf into the skies and beyond as the greatest wrestler of all times. Level 7 then, we get more spells. Oh yes, Dimension Door gives great mobility, so go grapple those distant targets that are trying to run away from you. Polymorph is also a great choice. I love Polymorph. It allows you to shapeshift in strong beast forms that can grapple for you. I would suggest, one of my personal favorites, you turn yourself into a huge giant crab once you reach level 8. It's a CR8 creature, so can't do it at level 7, but at level 8 you can. Each of the pincers of the crab can grapple a target, and it grapples automatically when you hit with an attack. It also has +9 on each attack, so they're actually really good grapplers all around. So turn into a huge giant crab and start grappling people left and right. Level 8, of course, is going to give us an ability score increase we badly needed by now. We do have a lot of choice here. Strength makes your grapple better. Athletics would be at a magnificent +10 if you pick strength here. Constitution, yeah, sure, that would keep up your concentration spells easier. And Charisma buffs a lot of your bard stuff. It buffs your spell, you gain an extra bardic inspiration die that you can use to enhance your grapples. So that's what I'm going to take here. We are still a primary spellcaster with a nice grapple sub-build. But you're still a bard, so make sure that your spellcasting is not terrible. So I'm bumping Charisma here, but take the build where you want to go. If you want to double down on the strength score because you're going to multi-class into, let's say, a fighter later on to gain extra attack, then bumping strength could actually be a really good idea. It's all yours. Make the build your own. And there we have it. You have the versatility of a bard and the grappling potential of a really angry dwarf. It's a bit less one-sided than the barbarian build, but a bit less offensive as well, because you don't have those extra attack features. You don't have the punching power from Grappler, but you still need a free hand to grapple. So it's the ultimate grappling Swiss Army knife, but it's not a really big powerhouse when it comes to offensive stuff. You can pick up some spells to even this one out. Nobody's going to hate you for picking up a good old-fashioned shatter somewhere along the road at the lower levels. Or at higher levels, swap out some spells for other spells that give you a bit more boom for your buck. Go for it. But you don't have the extra attack feature. You don't have Tavern Brawler. So your grappling is one grapple per turn, and you have to make sure that this one succeeds. That's why your concentration spells are so important. That's why your bardic inspiration is so important for cutting words. Right, stick a fork in me, cause I'm done. Go out there and build your grapplers and let me know in the comments down below how this turned out. What are your experiences with grapplers in D&D 5e? Don't forget to click like and or subscribe, and then we'll meet each other again in the attic dungeon.